Well, let's cross now to Andreas Krieg. He joins us from Doha to discuss more on the fight against Daesh. He's an assistant professor at King's College London's Department of Defence Studies. Welcome to the programme. How do you think the fight is going, both in Iraq, in Fallujah, and also within Syria?
I think, considering where we were last year, the fight is actually going quite well. Nobody has expected it to be such an effective push on the east and on the western front. On the eastern front, obviously, they're being held down by the ineffectiveness of the Iraqi security forces at some point. But the important difference now is that you have a lot of Sunni Arab tribal factions who are fighting the fight as well, and obviously the Kurdish forces in Iraq, the Peshmerga and the YPG in Syria. The key aspect here is it's not about just freeing these territories, but actually holding these territories using Sunni Arab tribes who are part of the social fabric on the ground. And I think this is going to be the key aspect of basically not just pushing ISIS back, but also holding the territories from ISIS and stopping ISIS from returning to these territories.
If we look at the Manbij pocket, this is in Syria, the aim of the Syrian Democratic Forces is to choke off, they say, the access to this crucial area. What would that mean for Daesh if they lost it?
Oh, it's very significant. This pocket is their last access point to Europe. This is where most of their material comes through. This is where they have tried to, or this is where they have sold in the past some of their oil reserves. This is where many of the foreign fighters are coming in from. And this is basically, if you cut this off, they'll basically be completely insulated or isolated in Syria and Iraq. For the most part, most of the resupplies now, especially in foreign fighters, have to come from Iran, because it's very difficult to actually go and enter the so-called Islamic State. So this would be a very, very significant loss for ISIS, and they will keep up fighting, keep up a hard fight for this territory, because if they lose it, it might be the end, might be the beginning of the end of Raqqa under ISIS control.
Now, the US has been coordinating with the YPG, a group that Turkey sees as a terrorist organisation linked to the PKK. Do you think Turkish forces will get involved?
No, absolutely not. I think it's already a massive concession towards the US special forces and the US military to allow them to operate from Turkish territory using artillery from Turkish positions, as well as allowing them to enter into Syria from Turkey. That's already a major concession. I think at this point, Turkey is not really worried about what's going on in the south, as long as the YPG is not extending its territory and then creating a situation on the ground of a quasi-Kurdish state, which would be a fait accompli, which might be irreversible at some point. So it's important that the US military shows that long-term these territories might be freed using the YPG, but the Arabs, Sunni Arabs who are living in these territories are the ones who are administering them, making sure that in the long term we will not have a Kurdish state on the south, which might link with the PKK in Turkish territory.
Okay, Andreas Krieg from Doha, thanks very much for your thoughts on TRT World.